Hey guys, welcome back to Hemlock Ridge. Hey, glad you can make it today. I'm going to give you a full tour of the property in the homestead here in the winter. It's funny, I ran into a few guys who recognized me on a business trip of all places, and they'd said, hey, we'd like to see more of your property. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the nearly 30 acres today in the winter. So let's go ahead, let's get started. This is going to take a while. Welcome back to Hemlock Ridge. So it's a beautiful winter day out here today. Bright sunshine, a little bit chilly, just around freezing. Picked up a little light snow last night. A little breezy though, so it's definitely feeling kind of cool. But love these types of days to get out here in the middle of the winter, get some bright sunlight, and really get to enjoy all of the nature and the quiet and everything the property has to offer. So let's go ahead. We'll start over here and show you. We've got a number of fields on the property. And one of the cool things about this property is that it's got such a diversity of landscapes. I had a forester back here a while back, and he said, you know, this is an amazing property because it's just not plain woods or just plain pasture. It's just got a combination of things. So let's go ahead and show you all those things today. So this is one of the pastures on the property, one of the bigger ones. And what's really nice about this is this gets full sun all day long. So this would make a really great food plot here and a place to plant some crops during the summer eventually. And really nice, it drains pretty well, lots of fertile soil on here. And it is really nice here, a little bit windy out in this section here though in the winter. And you can see behind me, we've definitely got a lot of elevation here on the property. You can see through the trees right here. We're actually overlooking a pretty good valley down there in the distance as well too. But we definitely are surrounded by some pretty nice sized hills all around the property as well too, especially to the north and the west, and have some really nice rocks and boulders and features like that on the property as well too. You know, when I purchased this property, it really had been, again, neglected, sat for years and years and years, and this old pasture was completely overgrown. Had lots of briars and thorns and all those sorts of things, really junky sap trees starting to grow on it. So I have cleaned it out again. Right now, just really grows hay during the summer, but this is all ready to go though for being able to cultivate the land in the future, which will be a project I'd love to tackle at some point. Now I'm standing on an inside pasture, something we joke around and call the parade grounds, but or the campground, because we often come back here and camp during the summertime when it's nice. This is really nice. It's an open area, but it's surrounded by a hill and woods on one side, the pond on the other. I've got a little picnic area, a little campfire area going on as well too. And another part of the property that's really kind of sheltered out of the wind and out of some of the elements, which is really nice. And this is the pond. Pond is a really nice feature on the property here. It's about 3/4 of an acre, the pond, almost 12 feet deep in the middle. And it's pretty cool because you can see it from the woods, you can see it from the inside field, and it's a really nice piece of water. One of the things I'm going to be doing late spring is I did get a state permit to add some grass carp to the pond, and we do get some weeds during the summer, some milfoil, duckweed, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to getting those grass carp out because they're supposed to really improve the quality of the water without any kind of adverse effects to the environment. You're not using chemicals or pesticides or any of that kind of stuff as well too. This is the quote-unquote spillway out of the pond. I don't know if this was ever intended to be the spillway. I've actually found some huge valves back in the woods. This was a man-made pond, and at some point someone put a pipe coming out of this thing with valves, and maybe that's what's supposed to be keeping the water level correct. I have no idea. They're rusted shut, and so the pond sort of just overflows into this corner here. and goes and runs into the woods. Hasn't been a problem. I ended up just building a small little pathway over this with some old railroad ties here so you can walk over it without having to get all muddy, which ends up working pretty well. And this is what we call the pond path. There's a number of paths I've been making on the property, and this was completely overgrown. And I've opened this up. Still got some work to do here, but this is pretty nice because you can walk down this, especially in the summertime when everything's green, and you've got the pond over here to the right. So this will actually lead back one of a few ways to the cabin on the property and back into some of the woods on the property. So leaving the pond, we actually get into some of the higher elevation on the property and actually get into what I call the Hemlock Ridge. It's where the property starts to increase in elevation, there's better drainage, and there's a lot of hemlock trees that have been growing over the years, and it gets really, really pretty. So this is one of two ways to get back to the cabin. This is a path I cut through the woods a number of years back, and it's nice because it leads right to the pond. Or back in here to the distance, got the cabin sheltered in the woods under a few of these really big, majestic hemlock trees. So one of the things I've been doing over the years is starting to open up some paths and some small truck trails or ATV trails. And I think this property was logged at some point, maybe 30 years ago. So there was some old logging roads, if you will, that were kind of cut into the property that just needed some cleaning up. And this is one such junction here. If I go right, I can get up to the cabin. If I go left, I've got a really nice long path that meanders through some rolling hills down to the lower parts of the property. The other thing I've done is I've actually cut in some hiking trails. It's really fun to go and cut a trail through the woods, and for fun, my kids and I, we put some colored markers on the trees so we have different colored trails depending on where you want to go. This is one of the trails I'll take you on a little bit later, but it actually takes you down into the ravine or the gorge to see some of the waterfalls. So you can actually see how high up we are compared to the gorge or the ravine down there. I've never measured it. I think it's got to be at least anywhere from 60 to 90 feet deep, which is pretty cool. And this particular trail takes us right along that down into the ravine, which is really neat because there's some really cool vistas of the creek down below. So we're back on the quote-unquote main road here. And this is really neat. It kind of meanders down into, I guess they call this a hollow, but it meanders down into the woods here, makes some neat twists and turns, and really just follows this ridge down a ways into the property. There are so many cool just little pockets in here that you could do something with. Right behind me here is a little bit of a level area, a little bit lower still with the gorge on one side. I always thought this would be a really cool place to build like a bunkhouse if I wanted to host a few people. Another small log cabin with some bunks in it where they could hang out, have a little bit of space around them as well too. Even a great place to build a small campsite and pitch a tent during the summer. So let's go ahead and continue on down the road here. I've been back here in a while. I definitely have some branches and twigs that have fallen down in the middle of the road. So at this point, you've got two options. You could take a left down here if you're on an ATV and go ahead down the creek. Or if you want to walk it, there's a path that goes straight down here and takes you down to this lower spot. So let's go ahead and take the path. This is a little creek we have that runs through here. We actually call this Coyote Creek. The reason being is I believe some coyotes were building their dens back here a few winters ago, and we kind of nicknamed it Coyote Creek, but it's a nice little babbling brook that comes down here through these low spots and eventually makes its way out into the ravine down below. Got a little bridge in here, makes it just easy to cross over, nothing fancy. But let's go ahead and follow the creek down a little bit and we'll show you where the outlet is. So I'm standing just above the outlet of Coyote Creek. It goes and runs down basically some shale and a small waterfall into the main creek down below. Really pretty area this time of year when the water's flowing. Got a little bit of the waterfall, and you can really see in the main creek just how much water is moving going over that shale bottom right now. We've got some really massive trees back here as well too. I have no idea what type of tree that is. If you do know, please let me know in the comments section. It's definitely not an evergreen, because way up there you can see it's just a bunch of open branches, but that is definitely an old tree. I mean, look at the size of this bark. It is absolutely huge. There's some really neat old trees back here. My kids call this the sloth tree. I don't know exactly why, because it's twists and turns, and it's actually, I think, a tree that fell over at some point, and as it fell over, it started to root where it fell over and grow too. So it's a pretty unique tree. This is another low spot on the property back here, another flat level shelf down by the creek. So we've kind of come down from a much higher elevation, and this is an area down here that is flat, could be opened up at some point for something as well too. So now we're on a footpath that continues further along into the property. This is another section down here that is fairly flat and level. Definitely got some hemlocks, but we also have a few cherries and a lot of maple down here. And because of all the maple here, especially all the maple up on the hill, I think this would be an excellent spot someday to build a small sugar shack to be able to boil off some sap. Go ahead and use the gravity from the hill to fill the tank. And I love doing small batch maple syrup at home, and this would be a great place eventually to expand that, get a wood-fired evaporator, and go ahead and start tapping some of these maple trees. Actually, today would probably be a great day for it if I was set up. So that might be something in the future I'll look forward to, is boiling some maple sap out here in this location, which is absolutely surreal and peaceful because you can hear the creek in the background rushing. You've got your maple trees, and so quiet you can't imagine. This really is another great camping spot down here because it's flat. There's some open areas where you can go ahead and pitch a tent. You're surrounded by some hills, and right over here you've got the creek that is just babbling, giving off the most amazing and relaxing sound. I mean, it's like one of those sound machines where you just hear running water all the time. Just super beautiful. So right behind me now, I'm standing on the gas line. There's actually a gas line that does run through the property. Pretty cool views though, because it's opened up a little bit, so you can see some of the topography behind me, including the mountain behind me as well too. They did some erosion work this past summer, so they're trying to slow down the erosion because I guess the gas line was going to be eventually exposed if the soil continued to wash away. But let's go ahead and hike down the bottom, and we'll go ahead and check out the lower falls. So this property actually has 3 main waterfalls, which is super cool. I'm on the lowest of the 3 waterfalls right now. We call this Lower Falls. This waterfall was actually man-made because the gas line goes under the creek and they had to stop erosion. But we also have some natural falls just up ahead, which are really cool as well too. So I'm actually at the property line right now on the western edge of the property. These are the natural falls, absolutely beautiful. And you can see that the water here is so clear, running over a slate bottom. It is awesome. I absolutely love it here. So this summer I want to take you guys on a full tour of the creek and all the waterfalls. I can't do it right now because there's a few spots that are flooded out and it's too deep to get through. But in the summer we'll definitely do a video on that too, to take you along and show you it's almost about 3/4 of a mile of different creeks and waterfalls and all kinds of cool stuff like that as well too. Let's go head up and we'll go take a look at some more of the property. So this is an interesting part of the property. It's the swamp. Doesn't sound too impressive, and it really isn't. It is a swamp. It's wet all the time. Nothing grows in it. And candidly, I don't know really what to do with it, if anything. I thought it might be a good spot to build a solar array at some point because it gets lots of sun and there's not any trees that'll block the solar panels. But it's a pretty far run to take that solar energy and do anything with it, especially if I was going to get to my cabin, which is probably 2,000 feet away from here at the closest. So if you have any ideas on if you can run solar that far, let me know. I don't think you can because of the voltage drop, but maybe there's some other creative things I could do with this as well too. I'll tell you, there's really not much more I'd rather be doing than doing this on a gorgeous winter day like today. It's just so good to get out in the winter. Blue skies, fresh air, snowpack. It's phenomenal. All right, let's head back up to the cabin. From there, I'm going to go ahead back at the junction and take the trail down to Hemlock Falls, which is really the most beautiful waterfall on the property. Let's go check it out. All right, I'm back up here at the junction and going to go ahead, take the blue trail down to Hemlock Falls, which is the middle set of waterfalls, one of the probably the most impressive feature on the property. Let's go check it out. We do have a few rules up here on the ridge, and we just ask that you do follow them if you're up here. This is one of them. So on this particular trail, there's really a lot of elevation. You're going down probably 75, 80 feet into the ravine. And right behind me here, this is really cool. This is a natural lookout. There's actually a bend in the creek right here. And you can see way down where the creek kind of comes into this hill and then takes a turn and continues west down towards where we were before. This is another project I want to do, is put a nice bench here so you could just kind of walk back and sit and overlook the ravine and listen to the water. And maybe that's something I'll do this summer. So one of the things I did is I put some 4x4s in here as steps so that it's a little bit easier to go ahead and get up some of these steep areas as you're kind of climbing up or climbing down. But check out these tracks right here. Anybody know what those are? Definitely not deer. Looks like it could be a raccoon. So when I first acquired the property, it was pretty hard to get down here. And this is, again, one of the major focal points that I've got visitors. I want to take them down here, check out these waterfalls. So this is what I built. Kind of get down one of the steepest spots here. There's a natural spring, so there's always some water coming out. But you use the rope here to shimmy on over to the top of the landing. And then this landing is just made by some 2x4s and 4x4s as steps to kind of create stringers. And it actually works out really, really well. Except when it's icy and I almost went into the drink. All right, so we are almost there now. This is definitely one of the most treacherous spots on the hike, especially when there's snow. No way to get down here except holding this rope. And you can't see it because they're covered up with snow, but I've actually got 4x4 steps that are pounded all the way in with big stakes 2 feet into the ground that go around this ravine, so we can go ahead and get down to the lower part of the falls right here. Let's go check it out. All right, I am just about on the edge of the falls here, inside of the ravine, and the path continues right on behind me here. I had a big hemlock tree that came down that's blocking the path, and I just got to kind of scurry over it right now until in the spring I can come cut that open and open up that path. But just a little bit more, we'll be down right at the water level. So this is my favorite spot in the property. Can you imagine why? Awesome. These falls are going to be running all year long, even in the middle of the summer during the drought. These continue to run. I had a big hemlock tree that came down, broke in half right here, and it's obviously kind of messing up some of the water flow, because normally I even get water on this ledge over here. So this summer I'm going to try and clean this out so the water continues to run. But this is Hemlock Falls, one of my most favorite places to be. So you can imagine this is why I love it back here so much. I mean, these waterfalls, I mean, this is just such an incredible gift from nature to see. It's absolutely beautiful. We're going to run all summer long. Always beautiful waterfall sounds when you're back here. The water is crystal clear. You can even swim in the swimming hole in the summer. It gets warm enough, it gets deep enough when the water warms up a bit. So you can see down there further to the west, the creek just kind of flattens out a bit after the falls, which is nice. And over here to the east, the creek gets really, really interesting. Then in the summer, I will take you guys all the way up here, because there is some spots that are really deep right now due to down trees and stuff like that. But you can walk this creek all the way up, and it actually splinters into 4 different creeks. So it's pretty neat. This is something we call table rock, and it's this gigantic piece of slate or shale, I'm not sure what it is, that sits here right in the middle of the creek. It's all flat, and it's a really cool place to just set up a chair and watch the water go by. You can see just how far down we are right here. This is one of the spots where the creek actually bends, and actually doesn't look that big on video, but it is super high up there, easily 75 feet high. And the farther you go into the ravine, the steeper the walls get, which is pretty cool. Right now that water is way too deep. I would need waders on to get through it, so we'll come back again in the spring when the water's a little bit lower and do a complete tour of the entire creek. Really cool though to see all the shale down here, lots of hemlock trees, and just a really, really beautiful place. All right, I'm going to go ahead and climb back up top here, up the trail, and we haven't even seen half of the property yet, so there's still a lot to see. Hope you'll stick with us. All right, made it back here to the cabin. Definitely that gets your heart working coming up that hill. I'm going to go in the other direction now. We're going to continue to follow the road out into the other part of the property, and we'll go check that out. So this is a really neat piece of the property because you have some elevation here. You can see a mountain ridge in the background. You can see the pond a little bit through the trees. I always thought this would be a really cool spot to build a wood-fired sauna someday. Clear some of the trees so that you can see the pond as you're in the sauna, and the views. And the sunsets here at night are amazing because the sun actually goes down behind that ridge in the background, and the whole sky typically lights up with a whole show of colors from red to orange to yellow to pink, which is really, really cool. So as we continue to head up Hannah's Hill, we continue to pick up some elevation. We're getting higher and higher up. You can see it's getting breezy here as well too. And we're headed to the highest part of the property in just a few minutes. So I'm standing up here on one of the highest parts of the property, if not the highest part. And what's really unique about this area is it must have been logged extensively years ago because there's a lot of big stumps up here. And all of the trees that have grown in are yellow birch. So there is just nothing but wall-to-wall yellow birch up here. And a lot of them aren't that old. I mean, you can see the diameter on a lot of these trees are probably about 6 inches, maybe even less. So it's a pretty unique area up here. And on the back of the hill is an entirely different ravine. This one, not a lot to see down there, small creek, kind of a pain to get down there. But the property is definitely bounded by that ravine, which is pretty neat. So this is a really cool spot behind me. This is just a row of hemlocks that have grown in on this landing up here. And in the summer, the entire floor of this forest gets covered with ferns. It looks so cool. And you're kind of bound by this huge ravine all around you on all sides back here. So it's a really peaceful spot to come and hang out. So I'm on Emmylou Lane now, and another cool path right here. I mean, one thing about this property that is so great, if you look around, you'll never run out of wood. There are some hardwoods. There are hemlock, which if you dry out will burn. Yellow birch actually burns really good once it dries out. So you never have to worry about running out of a heating source, which is fantastic. Never need to go buy firewood. You've got firewood for life, even just cutting the stuff that's fallen down. So that's a really positive thing with building an off-grid property. So let's go head down to Griffin's Gorge. This is another really cool area of the property. It's actually a different gorge than the one we were in before, but really cool too. Smaller waterfalls, lots of neat little creek bottoms to explore, and really, really secluded. Let's go check it out. So this is a really neat feature. We jokingly call this Jack's Beanstalk because it is so big. Probably one of the largest wild vines I've ever seen growing before. This thing has got to be, I don't know how many years old, and just so big. I know a lot of people will cut these typically because they can kill a tree, but this one was so big I had to leave it. It was super, super cool. So this is where it gets pretty steep, but we are almost down into the bottom of Griffin's Gorge. This gorge is a different gorge, eventually meets up at a three-way intersection, if you will, a ways down. But we'll go down here and see what the water looks like and some of the waterfalls because I can hear it running. So this is another tricky spot to kind of get down in. Got more climbing rope here. Kind of guide you down. Eventually I want to pound some steps in here. Got some root handles, which is really nice. And as you get down here, though, it's not too bad. So this is Griffin's Gorge. It's a really neat gorge, lots of twists and turns. There's some massive boulders down here, small waterfalls, little pools. It's a really cool place to explore if it's the winter or even the summer. So quiet down here. All you can hear is the water. Sometimes your ears are ringing. It's so quiet down here. Now the property has another 3 acres on the other side of the creek here, up on this ridge. And I really don't feel like scrambling up there today because it's a little bit muddy. But there's some huge hemlock trees up there. It's some neat elevations and stuff like that. Definitely an area we'll continue to explore another day. Go ahead and we'll see if we can make it down to the next junction on the creek here just to go check that out. Some really neat little chutes and stuff like that in the stone we can go look at. I've always found this to be a really neat spot here because the way that the stone broke off, it almost looks like somebody manufactured something, but it's just the shale, you know, it just got broken up that way. And it looks like it was a foundation or something like that, but it's pretty cool. The water just came down here, must have hit a vein in the rock and broke it off. So this is a cool spot because this is actually where 3 creeks meet up and they're all flowing west from here. So there's one creek coming up from the south, one coming in from the east, and the other one heading out to the west behind us. So this is like a creek junction. Pretty cool stuff. And up at this creek here at the top we have something we call Upper Falls, which is the northern or highest most waterfall in it. This is the smallest of all the creeks. I'll try and get up there. It actually looks a little bit icy because there's less water here, so it's frozen over. But we'll give it a shot and see what we can see. Yeah, you can see this was totally frozen over probably not too long ago, and it's melting. If it was much colder, I probably would be not going up here because it would be complete ice. But let's continue to forge on. And here are the highest falls. This is Upper Falls. Small falls, but also the property boundary, but we made it all the way up here, which is great. So I think that's going to do it for me. The sun is starting to go down, but thanks a lot for coming along here on Hemlock Ridge. Hope to see you back here next time. Get outside and enjoy yourself. And we'll see you back here on Hemlock Ridge.